I started the job in late September. That kind of month when the mornings still smelled like summer, but you could feel the cold waiting at the edge of the day. The office sat above a small bakery, and every morning when I unlocked the glass door, the air was already thick with sugar and yeast. She was already there most days. Ms. Hayashi, my boss. Not the kind of boss who filled the room with noise. She moved quietly, her voice never higher than necessary, her perfume faint enough you only noticed it after she'd left. The first time she spoke to me, I almost didn't hear her. "You're early," she said, setting down her thermos beside the printer. I smiled. Couldn't sleep. She didn't look at me, just checked the paper tray. Insomnia or ambition, did it both maybe, that was it. No small talk, no smile. But for some reason, her voice stayed in my head for the rest of the day. Soft, slightly rough around the edges, like she'd been awake longer than anyone else. Most mornings, we'd be the only two in the office for that first half hour. She'd drink from the same silver thermos, type without looking at the keyboard, and hum. Not a song I knew, just a line that never seemed to end. I started noticing things I shouldn't have. How she pushed her sleeves up before writing notes. How she always paused before sending an email, fingers hovering over the keys as if reconsidering something invisible. And how, whenever the sunlight hit her desk, she'd shift her chair slightly away from it, like she didn't want to be seen too clearly. One morning, she brought coffee from downstairs. "You take it black, right?" she asked, setting it on my desk before I could answer. I blinked. "You remembered. You make the same face every time you drink the office coffee," she said. Her eyes flicked up, just for a second. "Consider this a mercy." I laughed, though it came out quieter than I meant. Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite not. We drank in silence. I folded and unfolded a napkin, for no reason. She watched the window. The whole scene couldn't have lasted more than 5 minutes, but it stayed with me longer than most things do. Sometimes I'd type a message to her at night. Work-related, mostly. Something small, then I'd delete it, every time, because it was never really about work. She was married once, I'd heard. No ring now. People whispered about that kind of thing like they always do, but she never mentioned it, and I never asked. There was a rhythm to our distance, familiar, careful, maybe even comfortable. Until it wasn't. Last Friday, the power went out just before closing, the lights dimmed and the hum of the office died all at once. She sighed softly. "Wes will have to wait it out." I offered. "Want me to check the fuse?" She looked at me for a long moment. Then, "No. Just sit." So we did. Two silhouettes in the half-dark. The streetlight from outside cast her in that pale, amber kind of glow that makes time feel slower. "You're playing with fire, you know," she said suddenly, voice low. I didn't know what she meant, or maybe I did. I met her eyes. "Then let me burn." She didn't answer, just stared at me for a second too long. Then looked away, her hand tightening around that silver thermos. A few minutes later the lights came back on. But neither of us moved. That night, when I got home, there was a message waiting in my inbox. No subject line. I stayed late the next day like she'd asked. Everyone else had already gone. The city outside was turning silver, blue. That in-between hour when offices look lonelier than usual. Ms. Hayashi sat at her desk, a stack of reports beside her, her glasses sliding down her nose. "Did you get my message?" she asked, not looking up. "I did," I said. Wasn't sure if it was for everyone or... It wasn't. Her tone was neutral, but the air between us wasn't. She gestured toward the couch near the window. "Could you help me go over these numbers?" Just a second set of eyes. I nodded, took a seat across from her. Our knees were closer than they should have been. I tried not to notice, tried harder not to show it. Half an hour passed like that, the soft scratch of pens, the occasional sigh. Then she leaned back, pressing a hand to her temple. "You okay?" I asked. "Just a headache," she murmured. I skipped lunch again. Without thinking, I offered, "You should eat something. I've got those rice crackers in my drawer." She looked at me, the corners of her mouth turning up slightly. "You always have rice crackers." "It's my survival strategy." That earned a quiet laugh. Small, almost surprised, like she hadn't done it in a while. She reached for her thermos but it slipped from her hand. I caught it before it hit the floor. "Reflexes," I said. Her hand lingered close as I handed it back. Not touching, just near enough to feel the warmth. She didn't pull away right away. "Thank you," she said softly. For a moment the office felt too still. The hum of the old fluorescent light, the rain starting up against the windows. Everything slowed. I should have looked away. Instead, I watched her trace the edge of the thermos with her thumb. She broke the silence first. "You know," she said, "I started working here when I was your age." "Really? Turns out, I only knew how to work hard, not much else." There was a tone in her voice, not regret exactly, something quieter. "Did it get easier?" I asked. She smiled without humor. "No, I just got used to the noise." I wanted to ask what kind of noise, but I didn't. Some questions don't need answers, they just hang there, filling the space. She leaned back, looking at me properly now. "You remind me of myself back then. Too much thinking. Not enough living. Maybe I'm just waiting for the right moment," I said, half joking. Her gaze softened. "You'll wait forever if you're not careful." We worked a little longer after that. Not much was said. The silence was comfortable now, or maybe dangerous. When I finally stood to leave, she gathered the papers and said, "Thank you for staying." "No problem." She hesitated, then reached out, brushing a piece of lint from my sleeve. It was such a small thing. But her hand stayed there a second too long. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It changed after that night. Not in any obvious way, no new words, no confessions, but something had shifted between us, quiet and irreversible. She stopped standing so close, or maybe I stopped breathing right when she did. Still, the small things betrayed us. The pause before handing me a file. The way her voice softened when she said my name. The accidental brush of fingers over the same pen. I told myself it was nothing, just work, just proximity, but my pulse didn't listen. One Tuesday, I came in early again. Rain clung to my jacket. She was already there, standing by the window, watching the city wake up. "Morning," I said. She turned, startled, then smiled faintly. "You always come in before everyone else."
Habit?
I said. "I like the quiet." "So do I." Her voice was almost a whisper. For a moment, we just stood there, both watching the streaks of rain slide down the glass. Then she said, without looking at me, "People talk, you know. They notice patterns." I knew what she meant. "Do they?" I asked. She glanced over. "Don't pretend you haven't heard." I hadn't, but I understood. The age gap, the late nights, the closed doors. I swallowed. "If it bothers you." "It doesn't bother me a bit. It just complicates things." The day went on, the usual rhythm broken. She avoided eye contact. I tried not to notice, failed miserably. Every small distance felt exaggerated. At lunch, one of the interns leaned over. "You and Ms. Hayashi are close, huh?" she said, smirking. "She never talks that much to anyone else." I forced a laugh. "She just likes her reports done right." But my face must have said something else, because the intern grinned wider. That evening, I stayed late again. Half hoping she'd ask me to, half hoping she wouldn't. She did. "I need help with the presentation," she said, not meeting my eyes. "If you're free." I was. We sat side by side, her screen reflecting in both our glasses. She was explaining something, numbers, projections. But I couldn't follow. My attention kept slipping to the soft line of her wrist, the faint scent of coffee, and stopped. Her words slopped, then stopped. "What?" she asked, almost gently. "Nothing." Her hand was on the desk, inches from mine. I could feel the heat from it. "Don't," she said quietly. "Whatever you're thinking." "I'm not thinking anything." She exhaled, long and tired. "That's the problem." The door opened suddenly. "Mr. Sato from accounting." "Oh, sorry. Didn't know anyone was still here." We both turned sharply. Too sharply, he blinked. "Right. See you tomorrow." The door clicked shut again. She stood, gathering her things with shaking hands. "That can't happen," she said, still not looking at me. "What can't?" "This." Her voice cracked on the word. Then she looked up, and for half a heartbeat it was all there. The want, the fear, the restraint fighting to hold. She almost stepped forward. I almost did too. But she didn't, and neither did I. Instead, she said, barely audible, "Go home." And I did. But I kept her reflection in the window with me all the way there. It rained again that Friday. Not a downpour. Just that steady, quiet kind that seems to slow time itself. We left the office together for the first time. It wasn't planned, it just happened. The last train had been delayed, and neither of us felt like waiting inside the fluorescent hum of the building. "Walk with me," she said, adjusting her umbrella. So I did. The street was nearly empty, the sound of rain against pavement soft and constant. Her umbrella was small, and when I stepped under it, our shoulders brushed. Too close. Not close enough. For a while we didn't talk. Just walked, the kind of silence that felt like holding your breath. Then she said, "I think people at work are starting to notice." I kept my eyes on the ground. "Notice what?" "Don't," she said quietly. "You know." She wasn't scolding me. It sounded more like she was scolding herself. I hesitated. "Does it bother you?" "Yes," she said. Then, after a pause, "No." She gave a small laugh, not from humor, but from exhaustion. "I can't tell anymore which part of this is wrong and which part just feels that way." We stopped at a vending machine under a flickering light. She bought a can of hot tea and handed it to me. "Here," she said. "You look cold." The warmth seeped through the aluminum into my palms. "You always carry the thermos," I said. "Forgot it today," she replied. "Feels strange seeing you without it." Her mouth curved slightly. "Maybe that's why I asked you to stay late." That hung in the air for a beat too long. "I shouldn't have said that," she murmured, almost to herself. "It's fine," I said. But it wasn't. Not really. We found a small park half hidden between apartment buildings. The bench was slick from rain, but she sat anyway. I sat beside her. Her hair had come loose, strands sticking to her cheek. I wanted to reach out, just to fix it, but my hand stayed still. "You remind me of my younger brother," she said suddenly. It stung more than I expected. "That's comforting." "That's not what I meant." She looked at me then, eyes tired, searching. "He used to look at the world like you do. Like everything could still change if he wanted it to." I swallowed. "And you don't?" Her gaze dropped to her hands. "I used to. But then life got complicated." "Is that what this is?" I asked. "Complicated." She laughed softly. "Isn't it always?" The rain thickened, blurring the streetlights into gold smears. I could feel my pulse in my throat. She turned toward me. Close enough that I could see the small scar above her lip. Her breath came out slow. "I can't keep pretending this doesn't mean something," she said. "But if it does," she trailed off, shaking her head. "If it does," I said quietly, "then what?" She didn't answer. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up, startled by her own movement. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed, and for the first time, I wasn't sure which of us was about to cross the line. She didn't come in on Monday, or Tuesday. Her desk sat untouched, the thermos gone, the chair perfectly aligned. No note, no email, just absence, sharp and invisible. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was sick, maybe a business trip, but by Wednesday, the quiet started to hum. The kind that fills a space when someone's supposed to be there and isn't. By Thursday, I stopped pretending I wasn't checking my phone every hour. Then, late that night, a message arrived, not from her but from HR. "Ms. Hayashi will be taking personal leave for an indefinite period." No was it. No explanation, no contact. The words looked clean on the screen, like they weren't supposed to hurt. The office changed after that. People whispered less about us and more about her. Maybe she burned out. I heard it's family stuff. Her ex-husband's back in the picture. I didn't ask questions. Didn't want answers I couldn't unhear. Still, I caught myself listening to every conversation that even said her name. Every voice sounded wrong when it tried to describe her. One evening, I found her mug still sitting in the break room, faint lipstick mark on the rim. Someone had washed it halfway but not completely. I took it, rinsed it properly, and put it back on the shelf. Ridiculous, I know. But it felt like keeping her in the room a little longer. The next week, I walked home past the park where we'd sat. It was colder now. The bench was empty, but the rain had left the same silver sheen on the ground. That's when I saw her. Across the street, in a gray coat, hair pinned back, walking with a man beside her, mid-40s, maybe older. He was carrying an umbrella for both of them. She laughed at something he said, that quiet kind of laugh that reached her eyes. I stopped walking. The light changed. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and decided not to. I watched until they disappeared into the crowd. That night I opened a new message. I hope you're okay. I miss the quiet mornings. You left your thermos. I typed, deleted, retyped. Then stared at the blinking cursor until it stopped feeling like a conversation and more like a confession. I didn't send it. I didn't know what I wanted her to say back. Or if I could stand her saying nothing at all. The next morning, someone new sat at her desk. Young, cheerful, unaware. She smiled and asked if I could show her where the printer was. I did. I even smiled back. But something in me didn't move with the rest of me. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It had been almost 2 months when I saw her again. Late evening. The bakery downstairs was closing, that familiar smell of bread and sugar seeping up the stairwell. I was locking up when I heard the elevator doors open. Her voice. Softer than I remembered. Still the last one out. I turned. She was standing in the doorway, holding that same silver thermos. Old habits, I said. She smiled, tiredly. I can see that. For a second, neither of us moved. The hallway light flickered once, twice. She looked thinner, her hair shorter. Like something had been stripped away and she hadn't decided whether she missed it. I wasn't sure I'd see you again, I said. I wasn't sure I'd come back. She walked in slowly, setting her thermos on the counter. I left without saying goodbye. I know that. I nodded, unsure if it mattered anymore. My ex-husband was in an accident. Nothing fatal, just enough to remind me how small everything is. How temporary. I'm sorry. She gave a small nod, her eyes fixed on the thermos. You were kind to me when I'd forgotten what that felt like. The words landed gently but deep. I leaned against the counter. You didn't owe me an explanation, maybe not. But I owed you honesty, silence, a clock ticking somewhere, the low hum of the vending machine. Finally, I said, it wasn't just work, you know. I know. Her eyes lifted to mine. No hesitation this time. Just a tired kind of truth. I cared about you, she said. Probably more than I should have. There was no tremor in her voice, no drama. Just plain words, like she'd been rehearsing the sentence for weeks and finally said it right. I wanted to step closer to say it back. But something in her expression stopped me, that small, protective distance she carried like a second skin. Instead, I asked, so what now? She thought for a long moment. Now, I think we do the right thing. Even if it's the harder one. I nodded. And what's the right thing? She smiled, faint, real. Not pretending this never happened. But not letting it ruin us either. She reached for the thermos, unscrewed the lid, and poured a little into the cap. Steam curled between us. Still black? She asked. She handed it to me. Our fingers brushed, a brief, electric contact that said everything words wouldn't. We stood there, sharing the warmth in quiet sips. When I handed it back, she didn't take it right away, just looked at me. Really looked. Like she was trying to memorize something. Thank you, she said. For what? For not making me explain more than I could. I nodded. Okay, that was it. No promises, no final lines. Just two people standing in the same space again, letting it be enough, and somehow it was. Spring came back slower that year. The kind of spring where the air still carried traces of winter. The smell of rain, the hush before the city woke. I started timing my mornings differently. Not to see her, exactly, but to match the quiet. 8:47 a.m., the elevator door would open, and she'd step out, a new thermos in hand, blue now, not silver. She caught me waiting once, smiled. Still can't sleep. Still can't help it, I said. We didn't talk about what had happened, we didn't need to. Whatever it was between us, it had stopped trying to be anything other than real. Work returned to its rhythm. She ran meetings again. I took notes, answered calls, avoided glancing too long across the table. But some things had softened. Her voice, my restlessness, the air between us. Sometimes, during lunch breaks, she'd ask if I wanted to walk. No rain this time, just sunlight, pale and forgiving. We'd pass the same vending machine where she'd once bought me tea, she still did. One hot, one cold. Balance, she said. You can't always stay warm. I laughed at that. The kind of laugh that sits deeper now, less nervous, more knowing. One Friday evening, she stopped by my desk before leaving. I'm visiting my brother this weekend, she said, adjusting the strap of her bag. He finally got married. That's good, I said. You must be happy for him. I am. She paused. He asked if I was seeing anyone. I looked up. She was smiling, but there was something careful in it. And what did you say? She shrugged. Told him there's someone who makes the mornings easier. I didn't say anything, just watched as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The same gesture I'd almost helped with once. She noticed. Don't overthink it, she said gently, just take it for what it is. I nodded. I can do that. The weeks passed. The office filled with new hires, new faces, new noise. But some mornings, when it was quiet enough, I'd hear her humming again. The same tune as before, still unfinished. And sometimes when she refilled her thermos, she'd pour a little into a second cup and set it on my desk without a word. We didn't need to touch. We didn't need to name it. It was just something that existed between us, steady, ordinary, alive. Last Friday we found ourselves walking past that same park again. The bench had been replaced, new wood, same view. We sat for a minute, watching the streetlights flicker on. She handed me a can of black coffee from the vending machine, same as always. Still bitter, I said, taking a sip. Still real, she replied. I looked at her then, older, lighter somehow. The years between us didn't feel like distance anymore. Just part of the same quiet story we never needed to explain. I think about that night sometimes. Her thermos, the rain, her saying I was playing with fire. Maybe she was right. But the thing about fire is, if you survive it, it teaches you warmth.